Welcome everyone to Follow Your Dreams, our summit here. I'm happy that you found the time to watch us today as well. We have a wonderful guest today. It's Marisa Murray. Hi Marisa, first of all.
Hi, hello.
So good to have you here. Really, I highly appreciate you.
Yeah, such a pleasure, such a pleasure.
Awesome. So just a short bio of Marisa. So Marisa is the founding president of Leaderly International, actually. So it's a leadership development organization that's focused on unlocking executives' leadership potential to actually yield superior business results. And you are also a certified executive coach and an author and a speaker. And you have lots of leadership skills yourself. So you actually were a partner with Accenture and also a vice president at Bell, right?
Yeah.
Wow, so lots of leadership experience here. So you have more than 20 years of experience, and you even wrote an awesome book called Work Smart, your formula for unprecedented professional success. And we will definitely talk about this as well. Yeah?
Great. Yeah.
Welcome. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to discuss and understand some of your needs of your clientele. So it's such a pleasure and it's such an incredible joy to meet you.
No, it's so great, and it's again, somebody from Canada, which it's we spread the inspiration around the world, and it's really an honor to have you because you have so much knowledge and everything, and I'm happy that you share this with our audience today.
Awesome.
So, like the first thing that I usually ask people is like, can you tell us a little bit about your career, and what Follow Your Dreams means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned in my bio, so I have about 23 years of experience. I actually started as an engineer. So I studied engineering in university, and I worked as an engineer for about 4 years, and then I decided to do my MBA. So as an engineer, I was a chemical engineer. I worked in a lot of manufacturing environments. I loved very analytical. I have sort of a side of me that really appreciates analyzing problems and finding solutions and then implementing them and making them happen.
Cool.
So I spent about 4 years just in kind of pure engineering with a variety of companies. And then I did my MBA and I decided to join Accenture, which was Andersen Consulting at the time. I liked the idea of management consulting because it's very project-based and worked with very large companies on big transformation initiatives. So I spent 15 years there. It was a very enriching time, lots of, hundreds of clients probably, and all kinds of engagements, global engagements too. So multi-country implementations, and also just a very enriching time for me career-wise. And ultimately, the path to partner required all kinds of development skills for me. It was interesting that my experience at Accenture actually introduced me to coaching. So I had 3 executive coaches at Accenture. I had one when I was up for senior manager, one when I made senior manager, and one when I was up for partner. And I always enjoyed these experiences, but I thought that people had kind of weird jobs. So I was like, it was kind of interesting, but I always thought like they had kind of cool jobs, but weird jobs. And so what's funny is I never considered doing that. I left Accenture. My role at Accenture became really global. I was traveling all the time. I had a huge team in India, so I was traveling to India all the time. And it was just felt time for me to be a little bit more local. And I took a role as vice president of a large telecom, Bell Canada, the largest telecom here in Canada. And it was meant to be sort of a really nice role, but I really didn't like it. So I spent, I kind of had a little bit of a career middle-age awakening, I like to call it, a few years back. So this is now 4 years ago. And it actually really hit me by surprise because I'd always navigated my career actually pretty well. I had done a lot of things well. I had built a lot of sponsorship. I had created a whole bunch of opportunities for me. And I ended up in a spot where, although the world was my oyster, I didn't know what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And that's a liability. Like, it was one of these things where I could do, in principle, I could do so many things. Mm-hmm. And I had all these opportunities, and I actually felt really guilty for not wanting them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just I didn't know what I wanted, frankly. I just knew that I was feeling more and more tired, more and more grumpy, like these really subtle signs. Like what's weird about when you're in these moments where you know you need to follow a different path, is the signs are actually pretty subtle. Like it's not like you get like a big broadcast message. You just start to feel a little less vitality, a little less. I've always been a very positive person. I've always enjoyed the people I've worked with, and all those things just sort of were slipping away from me. So anyway, I basically decided, like on a whim, very much on a whim, accidentally, I quit without a plan, and I don't really recommend this at all. I really it's a bad idea. It created a huge trough for me to climb out of, in terms of just really like a total identity crisis. And also, arguably my network has been amazing in embracing my new but most people thought I was either sick or something had happened to me, because it was really out of sync with what I'd been living. People thought I was happy, by everyone else's standards, and successful, right? So then everybody thought I was miserable and unsuccessful, like overnight, right? So it's really kind of a difficult time. What's interesting is that I was really determined to just figure out what the formula is, and again, this is my engineering background. And there's obviously a formula and no one taught it to me, and I'm gonna go figure it out. So that was a little bit of the precipice for starting to work with individual clients, doing my executive coaching certification. Once I did that certification, I realized all the things my coaches were trying to do to help me, but that I didn't always trust, because I felt like they'd never had my job.
Yeah.
So I found there's all these connections being made where I was like, wow, I get how I was supposed to interpret this, this particular, way of thinking, but I didn't get it, because I was like, you don't know my context, So with my clients, part of what's been amazing over the last 4 years almost is, I get to be in the trenches with them in terms of their jobs, and I get to work with multiple people at the same time. And I started to just have all this crazy pattern recognition around what are the things that you have to get right, which is what led to writing my book, and what are the 9 areas and 50 skills that I just think are are necessary. I don't think I've answered your question though. So what does it mean to follow your dreams? I'm sorry, I'm on this soliloquy.
No problem.
And this walk down memory lane here. I apologize. So I think what it means is to have access to your whispers. I think we're socialized beings where we it's natural from the very time we're very little. We get rewarded for certain behaviors and for certain things, and less rewarded or less noticed for other things. And I think that we love the feeling of recognition and visibility and sort of being seen and known. It's a natural thing we want. And so as we're socialized and we're getting recognized for being seen and known for different things, we naturally gravitate towards being seen and known. And I think we lose sight of that whisper of what is actually going to make us so happy and more seen and known, but not right away, right? Not right away at all. In fact, there's a huge lag between the whisper and, really achieving the practical experience and reputation around that whisper. And I think so for me, following and looking for your dream is first getting access to that whisper, and then solidifying your identity with that whisper. This is who I am, even though this is everything I'm doing. And then the magic is saying, okay, this is who I am, but here's where I'm at. How do I find a sliver of what I'm doing right now that best represents this, right? And you just start leaning into that sliver over time, and it starts to be a bigger pie, right? Of your, that's the better way to do this, rather than up and quit.
Oh, like I can see your engineer mind. Mine is no, there's no engineering in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so I
like,
think that's what it is. I think that's what it is.
yeah.
Following your dream.
So how do you then manage? Yeah, when you see this, when you said you see these slides, yeah, and you are here and you want to get there, yeah. So what would be, what would you, what would your advice be that
Yeah.
you get from here to there? Yeah, when you see this, you know, okay, I want that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, the first very thing is you have to be tenacious about the aspiration. Like, you know, you don't have to tell anyone, but you have to be totally convinced that this is the path, because your brain will sabotage you if you don't. It will just keep telling you, it will keep not seeing opportunities because it doesn't think you're serious. So some of the work I do with my clients starts with like literally forcing them to listen to meditations that I create for them that has the affirmations and the aspiration embedded in it, so that they can listen to it every single day so that their brain believes them, like, okay, we're serious. And it usually takes around 14 days for them to be like, wow, I don't know why, but I'm feeling more confident in my path, right? And I always laugh, because I was like, have you been listening to your meditation? And like, it's like a 15-minute thing once a day. And they're like, yeah, but I don't think it's that. And I know part of us don't want to believe it's that easy to change our minds, right? Because our minds, on the one hand, they're hard to change because they need repetition. On the other hand, they're so easy to change. You know, it's the reason why we're at where we're at is because all the repetition that the world has given us. So part of it is just making sure you're really anchored in that aspiration. Because then your brain will start to help you identify opportunities. And then the other piece of it is, you know, working the relationships. Just really looking at every interaction with somebody is a potential collaborator. And I didn't live my life that way. I lived my life very transactional in my relationships. I would meet somebody in a certain context and I would just play with them in that context. You know, if you were a friend, that you were a friend. If you were a colleague, you were a colleague. If you were a boss, you were a boss. Like, I just sort of put people in a box and I played within the box. And that is really limiting. A lot of the opportunity is, you know, in just understanding more about their aspirations, seeing where you have weaknesses, seeing just this constant being okay with being transparent about the things that you want to do. And then I guess the third thing is just all in the habits, right? You have to keep daily or weekly progress towards what you want. You know, there's no such thing as a monthly habit. You have monthly habits, the hardest thing in the world. You have to have it in your calendar and you often forget and delay it, right? So it has to become daily or weekly. So I tell my clients to always have 10 to 15%, which is about an hour a day, in their future proofing box, which is a section of their to-do list that's like, what am I doing to create my future? And I say, if it's blank, put something in it, like have coffee with Joe. You know, it doesn't matter. Or even spend 5 minutes researching that topic online. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to make progress towards where you're going every single day. And people will say that they don't have time. And I will say, you always have time for your top priorities.
Yes, it's all about priorities, right? Yeah. And then fear holds us back usually, yeah? Because you also say that, you know, worrying has often to do with procrastination. Can you
Yeah, well, I had this really big epiphany because I thought worrying was useful. Like, for years, I thought it was a useful activity. I thought I was planning. I thought I was thinking through things. I thought that I was making progress on a topic. I thought worrying was useful. So I used to worry all the time. I think I said out loud one time, I'm a professional worrier. That's why I deliver quality solutions. I mean, I took it in as my, like, you know, whatever. It was like part of my shtick. And I discovered that it is a complete waste of time. It just creates misery. It keeps you out of action. It's not the same as planning. It's just worrying. It's its own thing. And so I basically, like, I recommend banning worrying. As soon as you're in it, you're like, am I taking an action? Am I taking it now? You know, am I planning the next step? You know, or otherwise I'm not doing this. because it is feeding the fear monster, and the fear monster is insatiable. It's like this starving, crazy animal that won't stop eating, right? So the more you feed it, the more you give it. And worrying was a really big thing for me. Worrying messed me up in another way too. Worrying, kills your optimism. So like I would say, like, I deliver good quality because I worry. Well, the reality is, I would shoot lower because I worried. I would not stretch myself because I worried. Like, I wouldn't even see the glass half full ever because I worried, right? So worrying is not appropriate.
Yeah, it's time to accept that and to realize that, first of all. Yeah, for me it was like figuring out that I actually need to move in the direction of my fear and say, thank you, fear, for being here. Yeah. And thank you for guiding the way. I mean, now fear is getting smaller and smaller because he or she is a little bit pissed off.
Yeah, well, that's what I call the whisper, right? So the whisper, like it's that little, like, wouldn't it be great, or enthusiasm, but it always has fear with it, right? It shows up with fear, but it's just sparklier. Like it's sparkle fear. So when you start to tap into the, like, sparkly fear, and then you do what the sparkly fear said, and you have so much fun. You're like, oh my God, I want more sparkly fear, but it's really different than, for me, it's playful. I think we're so serious all the time. We want to be serious and taken seriously and seen seriously. But our little childlike play is the one that guides us towards things that we really enjoy doing, and that we're naturally talented at. I mean, that's the other piece too.
I couldn't agree more. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you also in your book, actually, Work Smart is actually an acronym, right? Can you explain it a little bit?
Yeah, I feel so boring. Like, I'm so an engineer, right? Like, it's a formula and it has 9 sections and it's called Work Smart, which is the most boring title ever. And it's an acronym. But apart from that, I'm not structured at all. I'm totally. Yeah. So W stands for well. And it's just the foundational stuff. Includes stillness as well, but exercise, good food. It's nothing that you have not already heard. It's simply the invitation to make declarations around how it's foundational. And this was important for me because I did lose a sister to cancer, which was really terrible. And she blamed, getting her illness because of working too hard and the stress of working too hard. And when I think about how she was just enormously talented, enormously already extremely successful. She died in her 30s. And it's just like, what a waste to this world because she wasn't well, right? So there's just nothing more important than getting that foundation done. And I put it off. I made up excuses for a long time. The problem is it's not urgent right away, but there's a great expression that says, like, make time for wellness now or for illness later. And, and I just think that, really we owe it to ourselves to honor this body that we're in, right? So that's W. O is for opportunity orientation, which is, of course, that whole notion of always seeing opportunities. R is relationship driven. It's one of the favorite chapters that people ask me to speak about a lot. It's really transforming from thinking about everything being a task in work to relationship first with the task. So enhancing every relationship as you work together. K is for kind. Kind is all of the connections, listening skills, all of the great human connection things that are critical to people's success long term. S is for successful. It's all about defining your unique version of success, and being absolute about this is my version. M is for managerial. It has a lot of the tactical things. People don't want to be like, they want to be leaders, not managers. But the reality is there's a bunch of stuff that we just got to be able to get done, right? In terms of, so there's some productivity, effectiveness, activities and structure in that chapter. A is for action orientation. So we talked about that. Like, how do you keep moving? You have to keep moving. R for resiliency, and T for tenacity. So, like, I honestly believe it's the formula. I know I'm biased, but I think if you can, like, walk through and tenacity, that's where we actually do all our dreaming. we figure out like, you know, this is where I'm headed and I'm going to be tenacious about it. You know, resiliency is all about navigating the ups and downs, right? And so we, you know, you need, I think that's the package. Anyway, that's my biased opinion.
What can our listeners, with these 9 different areas, what would be your first suggestions for them? What could they do now, How could they start?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to answer that question because everyone needs to start at a different place. So, you know, some of these areas people are doing really well. I mean, if I look at myself, I mean, I was navigating my career pretty well, right? But I still had some big gaps for me. So my big gaps were right? I wasn't doing enough well, but then opportunity orientation, relationship driven, and for sure tenacity were 4 areas that I just was not getting right. Some of my clients, you know, it starts with resiliency because they're actually in a really difficult situation and they need to kind of build themselves up. Some people are great at tenacity, meaning they know their vision and everything, but they have real gaps around being managerial, like just actually knowing how to do it. So, you know, I think it's, you know, I think it's worth doing the quick tour. I mean, I will at the end, of course, we'll share an audio version of my book. I'd love to share that with your listeners. It's not long to listen to, but I think it's worth kind of doing the quick tour and then deciding, you know, what is the piece that is first for me? Because I do think it is different for different people. I say in the introduction, like, I don't care what order you read these in, you know, like read them in any order, whatever you think you need, but we all benefit from, like, all of them will raise all boats. The question is, which one is holding you back the most?
And you usually feel attracted to one area anyway, immediately you say, I have to read that one, and you should probably start with that one, right?
Yeah, or you're allergic. That's the other thing. So I think that sometimes we're allergic. Like, people are allergic to the managerial chapter. They probably need it, right? So just know that you're either attracted in a good way or allergic. Those are both great signs that you probably want to explore and looking at that again. And I always think it's a good policy. I once heard to learn something fast, there's this acronym. The first F is forget. So try to forget everything that you know about the topic. I think that's good advice. A is for active. So just sit there and say, like, what do I really want to get out of this, right? Decide. We're passive learners, a lot of us. We've gotten trained to kind of take it in and do nothing, right? So A is being active. S is like paying attention to your state. So let yourself get emotional or angry at the book or angry at the person or whatever, because that helps you work it through. And then the T is pretend you're going to teach it to someone. So, you know, because if you sort of read something, then you're like, oh, I'm going to teach my friend that. You'll learn it in a new way. So I think whenever we're looking for any tools, we owe ourselves to sort of bring that rigor of learning into the situation, because, you know, there's abundant resources. That's the other problem. And you can get into the mode where you're skimming everything and everything starts to sound the same. And many of it is great advice, but the profound work is sort of when you take it and transform it, you know?
Awesome. So you and your acronyms, I'm like,
I know, I'm sorry, it's annoying, but it helps.
Awesome. I love it because it's good to remember, but you need to capture it first. So what would you say was like one of your biggest obstacles, actually, you know, in your path to follow your dreams, to finally, you know, become the person you are now?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things is the lack of recognition and encouragement that you reach when you make that shift to sort of to say, I mean, I had this funny experience. So, you know, I was a partner at Accenture. I had a huge client base. I had executive relationships with many, many people, and I had done really good work for these people. Okay, so I had credentials, like through the yin yang, for people that should arguably buy my services when I start being an executive coach, right? Like, I didn't decide I was going to be a neurosurgeon. I decided to be an executive coach. I had executive experience. I had delivered an executive role for them. So you'd think I'd have credibility to coach some of their people. And they were using coaches, right? So I start reaching out to my network after my certification. And I would be like, hey, I'd love to come have lunch with you or have coffee with you or come and see you just to tell you about the executive coaching services that I'm offering. And many of them would say yes. These very senior people would carve out time on their calendar. They would, I'd be all excited. I'd be like, I'm going to see so-and-so. I'd say to my husband, and my husband would say, they're going to try and offer you a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, they're not. They said they were interested in my coaching services, right? And he's like, no, they're not. They're going to try and offer you a job. And I'd be like, that's not true. And then I would go and they would be like, you don't want to do that. Like, why would you want to do that? You want to do this big job that I have coming up. And I was like, no, I just want this little mandate. Like, I just want one person. I just want this little mandate. You want to give me this big job and you won't give me this little mandate. And they're like, no, we don't know. We have our suppliers. We have our people, right? And so the hardest thing for me was when you know your dream, like you're like, as soon as I did my executive coaching, I was like, I was born to do this. I was totally born to do this. Many of people who worked for me were like, oh my God, like you're born to do this. You've always been my coach. Like you've been my boss, but you've always been my coach, right? So there were people that saw it immediately, but the majority of people wanted to keep me in my box, in the box that they were accustomed to seeing me in. And so it was really hurtful. Like I was rejected like crazy. And I started to think like, you start to question yourself, right? Did I not do good work for them? Do I not have the kind of relationship I thought I had with them? And it's not their fault. They're just, you have to realize that they've seen you in a certain way, right? So, but you start to be, it's very difficult. And that's why you have to be so tenacious about your aspiration, because they can't see it till they see it. These same people have now said they're super proud of me and I've totally found, and now, years later, like it's a no-brainer. They don't even remember my past life, right? So it's not like people have long memories, but they're stuck, right? And when you're taking your little seedling, so imagine you're like this little plant that's like barely has roots, and you're going out to the marketplace into like, a tundra of like people telling you no, you can start to believe that that's a sign, or it's not meant to be, or you can start to, or maybe you should just, quit your day job, like just get a day job. Like I used to just come home, and then I'd have to come home with like this job description with like these big dollar signs on the bottom. And I would say to my husband, should I apply? And he would say to me, I don't think so, based on the expression on your face, And so I guess that's the biggest obstacle. The biggest obstacle is you have to recognize that, your spark, it's a pilot light. It's tough at the beginning. But you know what? It's so worth it. And you can't let you can't let recognition run your own life. Because if you do, you won't have as much to be recognized for if you let recognition run your life. And that was a big obstacle.
I can so relate to that. Yeah, it's similar here. So I think it's for many people, they can't see others, yeah, in a different position or whatever, because they're so used to you in this certain position. And then, of course, if you change, they would have to start thinking about, oh, if she can do it, I could do it too, but I'm a little bit scared, so I rather tell her not to do it, not very often subconsciously, right?
Yeah, no, very subconsciously. I mean, I think that, some of my strongest sponsors, not consciously, but I think it was insulting that I had abandoned the path that they had helped me so much with. You can imagine, right? It's sort of like your child deciding to do something completely different. And I'm so grateful for the path. I don't regret the path, but it was time to take a different path. So I think you have to you can't get mad. You have to honor both their lens, but also the fact that they invested a lot of energy in you. And by you making this shift, it might feel like their energy was wasted.
Yes.
But now some of them are my greatest advocates because they see how all of that was incubating for another thing that's great, and they see how happy you are. That's the problem, is when you're in this transition, you're not looking that happy. You're trying to, but like it kind of shows, right? Yet, when things start to pick up, you start to glow, and people are like, wow, you look so good. Everyone tells me all the time now I look younger than I did 5 years ago, which is wonderful, but I haven't done anything.
You're following your dreams, right? So you've done a lot, actually. You do what you want to do. Yeah. So that's quite a lot, I would say. Yeah. Apart from all the engineering acronyms.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just think that Rome wasn't built in a day, and that's a really, really great thing to remember. It's all about what you do today. I used to have a sticker. I always have a sticker on my computer keyboard, on my laptop keyboard, to help keep cognizant of what I'm working on. So my sticker right now says, "How might I?" That's what it says. Okay. It says, "How might I?" because I'm growing, my business is growing very quickly. And so I'll get a new opportunity and my brain wants to say, "You're full, you're sold out." And I want to tell it, no. Like, how might I, right? So I have to sort of ask it, like, how might we do this? Or how might we serve this? Or how might we approach this opportunity, right? So I have it stuck to my computer because I have to say, how might I, on a regular basis right now. But what used to be stuck to my computer was one thank you, one sales offer. Every single day I had to do one thank you note and one sales offer, right? And that was like, whenever I started to wallow in my self-pity, I'd be like, have I done my one thank you? And I've done my one. And so it's those actions, those small micro actions every single day that are going to yield the ultimate success for you. And if you're so hard on yourself that you don't take those tiny, tiny, tiny steps every day, you'll prove yourself right that it's too hard.
Yeah, so that's why I also loved what you said in the beginning, that that people should take 1 hour a day to do something for the future self, in a way, to follow their dreams and to follow their dream path. Because that way, when you get into action, as you also mentioned before, you start feeling like that person, and you get, these little pieces of success, and then, you feel much better and more confident. And that's just like an avalanche, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, our time is up. With you, I should have had like 3 hours, I would say. Yeah.
So much fun talking to you about this.
It was so much fun talking to you about this too. I love to listen to you. And before we stop, I would like you to tell our audience a little bit more about the little gift you have for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is my book. So there's my book. I love that you just talked about momentum, because this is a little like a little round rock rather than this big obtuse box. So this is my book. And so there is an audio version of my book read by me. I'm providing a link so you can download the audio version. It'll give you a nice taste. It's not that long. I think it's about 3.5 hours in total to listen to. So I'd love for your listeners to just have a listen. It'll give them a really nice overview of the Work Smart formula, and maybe give them some ideas of some focus areas for them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marisa. Really, I think it's just such a great gift. Yeah. And I will be the first one to listen to you.
Oh, that's amazing. So thank you so much, Alexandra, and for the work that you do. It's inspiring and amazing, and I'm sure you're having incredible impact. So it's such a pleasure.
Thanks so much, Marisa. Yeah, we will talk to each other soon. Yeah, thanks for your time. And for everyone else listening, thank you for your time too. I hope you got a lot out of it. Marisa shared really a lot. Thanks again. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow for another episode of Follow Your Dreams. Have a wonderful day, my dears, and don't forget to follow your dreams. Bye.